I was the billionaire heiress's substitute boyfriend, and my brother was the A-list starlet's fixer. We planned to get our hands on some cash and then disappear. But before we could get the money, we both got dumped, forcing us to pack our bags and skip town that very night. 2 years later, the starlet tracked down my brother. I was just watching the drama unfold from the sidelines when a hand slapped the back of my head. "Running away is one thing," she said, "but you took my dog with you?" Just as Stella Vance was getting to the apartment door, my brother Leo was dragging me over to his iPad, trying to pick out a birthday present for her. The moment we heard the keypad lock beep downstairs, Leo tossed the tablet aside. "Quick, hide," he whispered. "She hates it when other people are here." I immediately contorted my 6-foot frame and scrambled under the bed. Leo, who had been all business a second ago, instantly transformed, spreading his arms wide to embrace her. "You're back," he cooed. Stella Vance, however, was not in the mood and shoved him away. "It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who leaked that Ethan Ford is an illegitimate son. His gallery just opened. This kind of negative press is disastrous for him," she snapped. "If you have a problem, take it out on me. Why would you go after him?" Leo's eyes started to redden. "You really think I did that?" Stella angrily slammed her purse down. "It happened right after you went to the gallery and saw him. He said you were the only person he told." Just as Leo opened his mouth to respond, Stella's assistant hurried over. "We can't get a hold of Mr. Ford." Stella set down the glass of water she had just picked up. She shot Leo a freezing glare before turning to head back downstairs. "Stella, it wasn't me, I swear," he pleaded. Stella let out a cold laugh. "You threw a fit last week just because I supported Ethan's gallery. If it wasn't you, then who was it?" Leo sniffled, a tear splashing onto the toe of his shoe. "Please, can we go tomorrow? Today is your—" "Just shut up. Don't say another word. I can't believe you're this kind of person." Without a backward glance, Stella slammed the door and was gone. "Did you ever feel anything for me at all?" Leo rushed to the door, pulling it open and yelling after her retreating figure. The clicking of her heels paused for a moment, but there was no reply, only the sound of a car engine starting and driving away. Leo picked up the iPad, rubbed his nose, and flopped on the bed, spread-eagled. "Well, at least I don't have to spend any money on her birthday this year." I poked my head out from under the bed and gave him a thumbs up. "Man, your acting is top-notch, bro. I almost believed you were actually in love with her." Leo gave me a light kick. "Ethan Ford is your girl's childhood sweetheart. I didn't do anything to him." I shot back. "And I did," he retorted. "What are you trying to say?" My voice trembled as I pieced it together. "We need to grab some cash and get out of town," Leo said, his gaze firm. "Why?" I asked. "Last week at the gallery, Ethan told me he was going to choose between the two of them. I called him a shameless bastard, and now he's coming after me. He's Stella's one that got away and Rose's childhood sweetheart. Knowing Rose's temper, if she thinks you've crossed him, you're a dead man." I scrambled up from the floor and started jamming my feet into my shoes. All right, say no more. Let's figure out how much cash we can pull out right now. We need to go. Leo and I are twin brothers. He was a theater major in college. I was in the economics department. He's the A-list starlet Stella Vance's go-to guy. He went to an audition his senior year, and Stella basically recruited him on the spot. I'm the billionaire heiress Rose Vanderbilt's substitute boyfriend. I went for a job interview after graduation, and she cornered me in the parking garage. We both grew up in an orphanage, and the only reason for our incredible luck was that we both happened to look like one guy, Ethan Ford. For 3 years, money was never an issue. Stella, being a major celebrity, was always careful about her reputation. Rose was a different story. As the only daughter of the richest man in Miami, she was a beautiful but volatile firecracker. If you got on her bad side, you were finished. We thought things would just keep going like that, but everything's changed now. Ethan Ford, the man who once proudly refused any financial help from Stella, is back. Apparently, after life abroad chewed him up and spit him out, he decided he was done trying to make it on his own. He's come back to choose between the A-list starlet and the billionaire heiress, planning to secure a comfortable life for himself. He told me at the gallery, Leo said, that all he had to do was crook his finger and Stella would hand over all her resources and I'd be kicked to the curb. And look, he's already making it happen. I don't really care. The worst she can do is dump me. But Rose is on another level. What if she decides to dump us both in the Miami River? I shuddered, remembering the time Rose dealt with someone who insulted me. Some guy called me a gold digger once. She had him dragged to a bridge, tied to a bungee cord, and made him jump all night. The next day, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, completely broken. And I'm just supposed to be Ethan's stand-in. If Ethan decides to target me next, what chance do I have? He's her real childhood sweetheart. We had to go. Right now, no questions asked. We made a plan. Go home, grab our bank cards, pull out as much cash as possible, and run. I had just about finished packing my things when the door opened. Rose threw herself into my arms, nibbling on my ear. "Standing by the door so late," she murmured. "Where are you planning to go?" I could smell the alcohol on her breath. She seemed a little drunk. We'd been together for 4 years, and while I hated when she drank, I never dared to get angry with her. "I was just about to come find you," I said. She seemed to be in a great mood, smiling up at me with narrowed eyes as she burrowed into my chest and pulled the door shut. "What do you want me to wear tonight?" she whispered. "You look good in anything," I replied, my heart pounding. Rose's mother had died when she was young, and her father was a notorious playboy who constantly brought women home, which made her think all men were cut from the same cloth. Once, when she ran away from home, she met a little boy who wiped away her tears. Rose told me he was the first person to ever do that for her. I always assumed that boy was Ethan Ford. Tonight, she was being incredibly forward. I had barely sat down before she was on my lap, smiling at me as she pulled at the fabric of her dress. I'm not like Leo. He and his theater friends are all about emotional connection. My connection with Rose was a bit more physical. Afterwards, a wave of sadness washed over me. As she rested her head softly on my arm, I stroked her hair. The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Do you love me?" She froze. In the dim light, I saw her eyes, faintly shimmering, stare at the ceiling for a moment before closing again. Her only answer was the sound of steady breathing. You can never wake someone who's only pretending to be asleep. But tonight, I need an answer. "What am I to you?" I asked, rolling over to kiss her. I held her close with one arm, my other hand fumbling with the silk of her nightgown. "You're crossing a line," she said, her voice cold as ice. She pushed me away, got out of bed, and slipped on her shoes. "You should get some rest. I'm going to sleep upstairs." The woman who had been whispering intimately in my ear moments ago now felt like a complete stranger. "Does this relationship always have to be a secret?" I asked. "I don't want it to be like this." "Oh." Rose glanced at me, her expression bored. "Then leave. We can break up." I was too stunned to speak, just staring at her. "It's not like I'm lacking options," she scoffed, before turning and leaving me alone as she went upstairs. What was I to her? Just some poor kid from the orphanage who looked a little like her childhood sweetheart. A secret she kept hidden away from the world. I knew my place. I didn't even have a ticket to get into the world of high society marriage. And yet, tonight, I just had to push for an answer. I wiped a tear from my eye and, strangely, felt a sense of relief. Rose's dog, Buddy, hopped onto the bed and stared at me with his big, dopey eyes, drool dripping from his mouth as if he pitied me. Buddy was a little stray mutt Rose had found, but I was the one who had raised him. I had to take him with me. With Buddy tucked under one arm and my suitcase in the other, I crept downstairs. The second I was outside, I sent Leo an iMessage. "I'm out." His reply was instant. "Airport in 30. "Can't." I typed back. "I've got the dog." "Damn it." "Okay, bus it is. See you at the Greyhound station in 30. Leo looked at me, carrying my suitcase and holding Buddy, and gritted his teeth in frustration. I didn't see the problem, but the sight of him standing there with 3 enormous suitcases like he was fleeing a natural disaster gave me pause. "What on earth did you pack, man?" I asked. "She dumped me," he said. "She told me to erase every trace of myself from her world, so I packed it all up." "Okay, but did you really need to bring the broom?" "I bought that broom." I was quiet for a second. "Fair enough. I got dumped too." Rose said she has plenty of other options. Leo patted my shoulder with a look that said he understood completely. With miserable expressions, we heaved our luggage into the storage compartment of the bus, then climbed aboard with the dog, slinking into our seats on the smelly coach and leaving the city behind. Stella Vance spent the day fielding endless calls from partners looking to terminate their contracts. The public backlash against Ethan Ford's illegitimate status was fierce, and his gallery was vandalized. She had no choice but to bring him to her place for safety, which is exactly when the paparazzi caught them, splashing the photos online overnight. This, in turn, led to Leo's angry departure. To make matters worse, the paparazzi she tracked down all confirmed her fears. Leo was the source of the leak. Stella, her assistant, whispered, "Leo took everything that was his." "Should we let him go?" "Ignore him," she snapped. Ethan, clutching his bruised forehead, said, "Stella, thank you so much for your help. You should really go check on him. I'd feel terrible if I came between you two." His eyes were downcast, his voice low and full of sorrow, which only solidified Stella's belief that Leo had done something monstrous. "Do you have any idea who could have done this?" she asked. "Well," Ethan began, "when we met, I tried to comfort him. I told him not to be insecure, that he was just poor, whereas I was an unwanted child with no family. I told him he had it better than me. I suppose someone must have overheard. Stella's heart sank. Someone overheard? The paparazzi she'd interrogated had been clear. Leo paid them to run the story. She hadn't wanted to believe it, but after hearing Ethan's manipulative tale, the last of her hope vanished. Ethan shot a subtle glance at Stella's face. He then stood up. "Stella, you should go find him." He took a couple of steps and then pretended to stumble. Stella rushed to his side to steady him. "Forget about him. He can go wherever he wants. Are you okay?" Just then, the red autofocus beam of a camera swept across the room from the window. After years in the spotlight, she was hypersensitive to things like that. "Who's there?" she yelled. Seizing the moment, Ethan stumbled, again, collapsing onto her shoulder. "Sorry," he mumbled. "It's all right. I'll take care of it. You just focus on getting better," Stella said softly, patting his back. Within minutes, a news story hit the gossip sites. The headlines were everywhere. A-list actress Stella Vance in late-night embrace with Ford Air and a secret affair, or just a fling. The alerts flooded Leo's phone. Leo sighed. In the darkness of the bus, his hand trembling slightly, he ejected his SIM card, snapped it in two, and tossed it out the window. My phone was already wiped clean. Following his lead, I did the same, ejecting my own SIM card and throwing my past out into the night. "Your dog chewed the latch off the window," Leo said, gritting his teeth as he glared at me and Buddy. "Now it won't close." Wind and dust whipped into the bus, and it was impossible to tell if the moisture on our faces was from tears or the damp night air. And so we continued, taking turns holding the dog and dragging our suitcases. When we finally got off the bus, we discovered our bank cards had been frozen. To save what little cash we had, we hitched a series of rides on rickety delivery trikes until we reached the remote mountain town of Boone, North Carolina. By the time we arrived, Leo's hair was a wind-blasted mess and my face was covered in grime. We looked like a pair of vagrants. It wasn't until much later that we found out how much chaos we'd left behind in Miami. First, Stella froze Leo's accounts, and then Rose froze mine. They both just assumed we were throwing tantrums and would be back soon. When Leo didn't return, Stella assumed he was hiding out with me at Rose's mansion. She stormed over there demanding that my brother show himself, only to discover that I was gone too. That's when Rose lost it. She pulled security footage from all over the city until she found the bus we'd boarded. "Well, were they? What about the footage from their destination?" she demanded. The security chief, standing before her, trembled. "Ma'am, after they got off the bus, it seems they may have run out of money. They switched to a delivery trike, and we lost their trail." Rose kicked the coffee table, sending it flying. "You don't know? Then keep looking. Do I have to do your damn job for you?" Stella tried to reason with her. "Rose, it's been over 48 hours. They're two grown men. If they don't want to be found." Before she could finish, Rose hurled a water glass against the wall. "Stella, your man is hiding from you because you were caught with someone else. I didn't do anything like that. Make would never hide from me." Every word was a dagger. Stella's knuckles turned white, her face pale. "Make left because your guy left," Rose snarled. "If I can't find him, I swear I'll ruin you. I can have you blacklisted from this industry in a heartbeat." Even Stella's own assistant took a nervous step back. Rose and Stella were worlds apart. Stella had spent years in Hollywood carefully cultivating her public image, always appearing graceful and composed no matter what was happening internally. Rose couldn't care less. Her father was the king of Miami's underworld, and she hated his guts. But as fate would have it, after countless affairs, her father couldn't have any more children, making her his sole heir whether he liked it or not. Rose was no coward. She was a beautiful lunatic who would even go after her own father, once leaking his sex scandals to the press just to tank the stock of a rival company. When she threatened to blacklist Stella, she was dead serious. Stella sighed in defeat and turned to her assistant. "Go with them. Help check the footage." For days, they scoured every frame of security footage in Miami. They interrogated every bus driver on that route, but our trail had gone cold. Eventually, Stella had to leave for a film set. The penalty for breaking her contract was too steep to ignore. Rose stopped her nightly bar crawls. Instead, she spent her days in the security room, watching the footage of Leo and me boarding the bus over and over again. Tears streamed down her face as she muttered to the screen, "Make, you son of a bitch. You even took the dog, but you left me." She wiped her eyes and whispered with venom, "Just wait until I find you. I'm going to break your legs so you can never run away from me again." We had no idea what kind of reaction our departure had caused. Stella had a Twitter account, but Rose didn't. Our SIM cards were gone, and our iMessage accounts were deactivated. Besides, Boone was deep in the mountains, with frequent power outages and spotty cell service you had to hunt for. Leo had suggested this place, mainly because we were broke. With the cash we had, we could live like kings in a small town like this. It was his whole better to reign in hell than serve in heaven philosophy. We bought a small inn on the riverbank in Boone, with a tavern on the ground floor and guest rooms above. And right now, I was in that tavern, playing a dice game with a circle of attractive tourists. Leo came over with a fruit platter and joined the game. "Hey, doesn't this one look a little like Rose?" he commented. A chill went down my spine, and I quickly chugged my juice. "Dude, can you not?" Later, in the restroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror and was struck by the sight of my own beard. It had been almost 2 years. Rose hated beards. I used to shave at the first sign of stubble. A pang of sadness hit me, and I quickly left the restroom. Boone might be remote, but news from the outside world still trickled in. An A-lister like Stella Vance was still a hot topic among the tourists who passed through. There had been a steady stream of news about her over the past 2 years. She made a public statement claiming she was secretly married. She started a scholarship fund for aspiring actors from low-income families, and she was frequently caught by paparazzi on late-night drinking benders. She was even photographed at a club, lavishing money on some male model. But about Rose, there was nothing. The only remotely related piece of news was that her father had remarried and now had a son. "Hey, handsome, what's on your mind?" "It's your turn," one of the women said, shaking the dice cup at me. I snapped out of it and downed my juice. "Let's play dares," another suggested. "Whoever loses this round has to kiss someone at the table." I immediately backed away from the table. "Nope, I'm out. Can't afford the consequences if one of you decides you can't live without me." As if you wouldn't be the lucky one of them shot back, and they all laughed. Leo, on the other hand, was all in. "Bring it on. I'll take a kiss from every one of you," he declared. I made a face at him. "You're shameless." "What's the point of shame? I'm living in the moment," he said, turning his attention back to the game. There was this one regular, Chloe, who'd been coming to Boone for a couple of months. She'd quit her job to travel after a bad breakup and ended up at our tavern every night. She was pretty, but she was no Stella Vance. But Leo was always friendly with her, his arms slung over her shoulder. They started having breakfast together, and he'd walk her home whenever she had too much to drink. She'd gone from staying at a BB to renting her own place, and it was clear she wasn't leaving anytime soon. It felt like things between them were getting serious. On this round, Leo lost. "So, boss man," one of the tourists teased, sensing the vibe, "do you have a thing for Chloe?" "I have a thing for all beautiful women," Leo replied smoothly. After 6 months in Boone, Leo had changed. The devoted, homebody type he used to be was gone, replaced by a charismatic, wandering rogue who could talk his way out of anything. He'd even picked up smoking, which, for some reason, only made him more popular with the ladies. "Oh, you guys stop. This is so embarrassing," Chloe said, covering her blushing face, but peeking at Leo through her fingers. Okay, we'll stop asking," someone said. "For your dare, you have to kiss Chloe." A chorus of kiss her, erupted from the table. Chloe even closed her eyes and leaned in expectantly. I grabbed my phone, ready to capture the moment, thoroughly enjoying the show. But Leo just froze. His eyes were locked on a figure standing just outside the tavern door. His grip on his glass tightened, his knuckles turning white. I followed his gaze to see what he was looking at. A chill shot down my spine. The woman in the mask, with her long, curly hair, tall frame, and piercing eyes. It was Stella Vance. The tavern was dimly lit, so none of the other guests noticed Leo's sudden change. They just kept teasing him. "Don't be shy. We're all adults here." "Come on," Leo said, casually tearing his eyes away from the door and turning back to Chloe. He pulled Chloe into an embrace. A second later, Chloe cried out in pain. The woman from the doorway had thrown her handbag, and it connected squarely with Leo's forehead. "Leo, you kiss her and I swear to God, I'll make her disappear," Stella hissed. "Who the hell are you?" Chloe demanded, pressing herself closer to Leo for protection. "Who am I? Why don't you ask him who I am?" Stella said, her eyes boring into Leo. Leo scoffed. "I was just her fixer. Someone to lean on when she was tired, to talk to when she was bored, to cook for her when she was hungry. And yeah, to sleep with when she needed that, too. Then, when she was done with me, she kicked me to the curb." Leo finished, blowing a perfect smoke ring and looking every bit the part of a jaded heartbreaker. Chloe stared, a flicker of jealousy and disappointment in her eyes, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, so she's an ex. Big deal," Chloe said with a shrug. "Everyone's got an ex. Everyone's fallen for a jerk or two. I don't care, Leo." With that, she leaned in to kiss him again. "You still want to kiss him? Here, kiss this." Stella, shedding her polished public persona, grabbed a plate of greasy chicken wings from the table and smeared it all over Chloe's face. Chloe was left sputtering, her face covered in sauce. Before Chloe could even react, Stella had grabbed Leo's arm and was dragging him towards the door. "Come on, let's go," she ordered. Leo yanked his arm free and jumped onto a motorcycle parked outside. He flicked on the headlight, and his face went pale. "Make go! Now!" he yelled, turning and tossing me the keys to the electric delivery trike we kept out back. I couldn't see what he saw, but I knew exactly who it had to be. I snatched our cash bag from behind the counter and bolted out the back. I was moving so fast, I slammed into the table of tourists, sending bottles crashing to the floor. Every single person in the tavern was now staring, eager to see what happened next. In my haste, I also sent the fruit platter flying, and it landed right on Chloe's head. Now, on top of the grease, she was covered in apples, strawberries, and watermelon. Saudi! I yelled back into the room. "Everyone, drinks are on the house tonight." I scrambled onto the delivery trike out back. Thank God I hadn't had anything to drink yet. I grabbed the handlebars, gunned the engine, and the little trike roared to life, its sputtering engine echoing loudly in the quiet night. I immediately regretted my choice of vehicle. It was slow, and in the pitch-black night, I couldn't see the rocky path. The trike bucked and bounced until it threw me headfirst into a ditch before I'd even gotten 100 feet. Without even checking if I still had the cash bag, I scrambled out of the ditch, ready to run. But as I pulled myself up, I was blinded by the beams of dozens of cell phone flashlights. Standing in the center of the circle of light was a woman in designer athletic wear, casually chewing a piece of bubble gum. Who else could it be but Rose? She looked me up and down, covered in mud, a smirk playing on her lips as she slapped me on the back of the head. "Running away is one thing," she said, popping a bubble. "But you took my dog." She gestured at my pathetic attempt to escape. "Still trying to run? Where do you think you're going? Grab him. Take him back." At her command, a few of her bodyguards moved in, hoisting me up like they were carrying a sack of potatoes. Covered in grass and mud, my head spinning, I was carried off to whatever base Rose had set up in Boone. On the way, I must have passed out because I started dreaming. I dreamt of the day I first met Rose. She was interviewing me for a job, and she asked if I remembered her. Of course I didn't. How would I know a billionaire heiress? I told her no. She just smiled and said, "The interview's over. I'm taking this one." I thought she meant I got the job. But then she pulled me into her car in the parking garage and had her way with me. The next day, my student loans were paid off in full. On the third day, the orphanage where Leo and I grew up received a massive anonymous donation in my name. On the fourth day, every person who had ever bullied me showed up to apologize. On the fifth day, she took me to her mansion and cooked me dinner herself. "Move in," she had said. Looking at her perfect, doll-like face, I simply nodded. Over the next 4 years, I discovered the explosive temper and wild mood swings that lay beneath that beautiful exterior. Everyone was terrified of getting on her bad side, and so was I, but my fear was more about her being unhappy. I learned what made her happy, that she hated beards, what her favorite foods were, and how to soothe her when she was upset. She knew all of my preferences, too. I have a low tolerance for alcohol, so she rarely came home drunk. I'd never traveled, so she took me everywhere, all over the world, arranging trips based on the slightest hint of interest for me. She even wore dresses to please me, something she'd hated her entire life. They reminded her of all the women her father brought home right after her mother died. The first time I saw her wear one for me, I almost cried. "Rose, marry me," I'd said. "The money you gave me, I invested it. It's over $1 million now. It's all in an account for you. I never touched it. If that's not enough, I'll sign a prenup. I don't care what anyone says." When I woke up, the warmth of the dream had vanished. I was clean, and someone had dressed me in a pair of silk pajamas, the matching set to the ones Rose wore. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding Buddy in her lap, just staring at me. In her other hand, she was slowly peeling an apple with a small, sharp knife. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly sat up. "Make, it's been 2 years, and I still can't figure it out," she said, her eyes welling up. "You took Buddy with you when you ran. Why did you leave me?" I couldn't stand to see her cry, so I moved to get out of bed and leave the room. "You're still trying to run?" she said, her voice dangerously low. "You take one step out that door, and I'll have your legs broken." My knees buckled, and I sat right back down on the bed. Rose came over and wrapped her arms around me. "Make, I checked," she whispered. "You haven't been with anyone else these 2 years in Boone." Her hand started to wander over familiar territory. I wanted to push her away, but my body had other ideas. She knew exactly what she was doing. It had been a long time, so things were over rather quickly. Embarrassed, I rolled over to get dressed, but Rose simply climbed back on top of me. We were out all night. I didn't wake up until noon the next day. The first thing I did when I woke up was head to the bathroom to shave, a force of habit. When I saw Rose wasn't in the room, I quickly threw on my clothes, planning to make another run for it. But when I got downstairs, I found her in the kitchen, making breakfast. The table was set with fried eggs, oatmeal, and some of my favorite side dishes, just like that first morning in her mansion. Buddy was at her feet, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook, a puddle of drool forming on the floor. "Come eat," she said, gesturing to the empty chair. "Where's Leo?" I asked hesitantly after a spoonful of oatmeal. "I knew you'd ask about him," she said. "Finish your breakfast. I'll take you to him." Rose drove me and Buddy straight to the inn. Stella Vance was standing outside the tavern. The mess from the night before had been completely cleaned up. Inside, Leo was sitting alone at the bar. The two of them were locked in a silent standoff. I started to walk over to Leo to see what was going on, but Rose grabbed my arm. "Stay right here," she commanded, her grip tightening. "Don't you leave my side." After a long hesitation, Stella walked to the doorway, her voice thick with emotion. "Leo," she began, "Ethan is gone from Miami. He's never coming back. There's no one else between us now." I had only learned the full story last night. After we fled Miami, Rose had gone on a warpath. She found the paparazzo who broke the story about Ethan and interrogated him, learning that Ethan himself had paid him to frame Leo. Then, she had her people dig up all of Ethan's dirt from his time abroad. It turned out the man who had so nobly rejected Stella's affections had actually been preying on a string of wealthy women, from models in their 20s to heiresses in their 60s. He had conned them all, breaking hearts and draining bank accounts. The real reason he'd turned Stella down years ago was because back then, she was just a struggling actress, not yet wealthy enough to be worth his time. Rose had her men beat Ethan senseless and tear his gallery apart. She then leaked his entire history of scams to the public, and soon, his past victims came calling. With both of his arms shattered, his career as a painter was over. In the end, Ethan sold everything he owned for a one-way ticket out of the country. What he didn't know was that one of the wealthy women he'd conned was waiting for him at the airport. If he managed to survive that encounter, he would never dare come near Stella or Rose again. "Make, you idiot," Rose had told me last night. That creep wasn't my childhood sweetheart. The boy who wiped my tears that day, the one who told me he was an orphan but was going to make something of his life, he had a mole on the back of his left hand. I only used Ethan's name as a shield because he wouldn't stop hitting on me back then. I glanced down at the mole on the back of my own left hand. It was only then that I finally understood why she had asked if I remembered her on the day we first met. Leo's story wasn't my story, and Stella wasn't Rose. Every relationship is different, even if they seem similar on the surface. Stella was initially drawn to Leo because he looked like Ethan, but over time, she had fallen in love with Leo himself, even if she hadn't been willing to admit it. When Ethan came back, her old, unresolved feelings resurfaced, creating an opening for him to exploit. It all came down to greed, not appreciating the good thing you have right in front of you, because you're still hung up on the one that got away. Leo kept his head down, polishing a glass at the bar, showing no reaction at all. Chloe came out from the kitchen with a fresh stack of glasses, set them down, and disappeared back inside. The sight of her made Stella's blood boil. "What is that tramp doing here?" she seethed. "Get out here, you shameless homewrecker." For the first time, Stella completely lost her cool, screaming like a madwoman towards the kitchen. Leo moved to block the kitchen doorway, saying nothing but not moving an inch. His silence seemed to panic Stella. She stepped closer. "Leo, when I told the press I was secretly married, I was talking about you." "Look," she said, holding up her hand, "I'm still wearing the ring you gave me. That model I was seen with, I only spent time with him because he looked like you," she pleaded. "Leo, I've been looking for you for so long. I miss you so much. Can we please start over?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, and the wind catching in her hair only made her look more tragically beautiful. "No," Leo said flatly. It was the first time I'd ever heard him speak to her with such finality. They were only a few feet apart, but they might as well have been on different continents. Stella broke down sobbing. "I know I was wrong, but I never, ever wanted you to actually leave." Leo sighed, stepped outside, and handed her a tissue. "Stella, it's over between us," he said softly. "From the moment you told me to erase myself from your life, I knew I shouldn't go back. But I held on to a sliver of hope. If you'd sent just one text, made one call the next day, I would have come running back. But you didn't." Stella's tears flowed faster. Leo's own eyes were red. "I was an actor too, you know. I know that you can't fake what's in your eyes. You said it was love at first sight, but the first time we met, I could see you were looking at me and seeing someone else. The only reason I stayed was because I was the one who fell in love with you at first sight," he continued. "I told myself that if I just loved you enough, eventually you'd forget about him. Make is my brother. He was there that day, helping me pick out a gift for you. The day I begged you not to leave, it was your birthday. For the first 6 months we were here in Boone, I kept thinking that if you posted just one thing on Twitter about me, even a hint that you missed me, I would have come back in a second. But you never did. You posted about your new movies, parties with friends, galas, restaurants, everything except me. You say you care about me, but what you really mean is that you realize no one else would treat you as well as I did or love you as sincerely. With that, Leo turned and walked back inside to the bar. So please, Stella, just go home. We're done. Stella covered her mouth, a choked sob escaping. She followed him inside, grabbing his sleeve. Leo, I'm a celebrity. I have an ego. I'm proud. You know that. You always said you'd accept that part of me. You can't do this to me, right? You still love me. So we can start over. We can. This time, Leo didn't even look at her. He just pushed a box of tissues towards her on the bar and then walked over to me. Little brother, he said, putting a hand on my shoulder. Your situation is different from mine. You should go back with her. I'll support you. He glanced back into the tavern. As for the inn, Chloe is investing, and we're going to run it together. What? No, I won't let you be with her. That tramp seduced you, didn't she? Stella shrieked. Stella started screaming and crying hysterically. Shut up, Rose yelled, covering her ears. Get a grip. Do you have any respect? Neither of them did anything to you. Keep screaming like that, and I'll have you committed. Stella bit her lip, tears of rage streaming down her face, but she fell silent. I turned to Rose and asked tentatively, so, if you don't want me to leave, does that mean we should get married? Okay, Rose said with a sly grin, not hesitating for a second. I was completely shocked. The subjects of going public, of marriage, they had always been forbidden topics for us. I had always felt like her secret, a pet she kept hidden away, never introducing me to her family or her social circle. You look surprised, Rose said, scooping Buddy into her arms and watching me with amusement. Still think you were just a substitute? She asked. Have you looked in a mirror? You're taller than that loser, and way more handsome. She wrinkled her nose in disgust at the mention of Ethan's name. My shameless father always wanted me to marry into some other powerful family, she explained. It was all about consolidating power and making sure I produced enough heirs to inherit his empire. He doesn't even like me, but he would never have let me go. If I had made our relationship public, that old monster would have come after you. He's into some very dark stuff, and I was terrified he would hurt you. That's why I never talked about it. For the last 2 years, while I was looking for you, I was also pouring money into an IVF clinic. I finally gave him the son he always wanted, so now he's willing to let me go. She grinned at me, looking incredibly proud of herself. Make, I used to be terrified of marriage. I really was. But I've imagined marrying you 1,000 times. I've pictured myself walking down the aisle in a white dress. But I'm not Stella, she said, taking a sip of her soda. If you're not interested, I can just walk away and... Her words were cut off. I pulled her into my arms and kissed her. Growing up an orphan made me insecure, and being poor taught me not to expect too much, so I took even our smallest fight as a real breakup. But if she really didn't want me, she wouldn't have bothered with last night. If things were truly over, we'd be in a standoff right now, just like Leo and Stella. If I didn't love her, will my first thought upon seeing her again be to shave my beard? If I didn't love her, would I have kept an engagement ring on our dog's collar for 2 years? I did it because, for me, I was always ready. All I needed was for her to be willing to say yes. And as it happened, Valentine's Day was just around the corner, a perfect day for a wedding.